We get the question a lot, can you grow daylilies in pots? The short answer is yes, and I'm going to give you 3 tips for being successful in growing daylilies in pots. So the first tip is you're going to want to get the right size pot for your daylily, which typically is going to mean that you need a pretty good size pot. Probably at least a foot across and probably more like 18 inches or 24 inches or even larger. It kind of depends. If you're planting a smaller stature daylily, typically those would have a small bloom, often have a smaller plant as well. Those could go in a smaller pot, but if you get something big, big bloom, big plant, you're going to need something larger just to keep it from falling over when they bloom. I'm going to show you one here that we potted up. We actually potted this up about 20 years ago. Just sort of a random thing, and it has kind of hung out here at the display garden for 20 years now, and as you can see, it's done fine. This is Lullaby Baby, and this pot is about 18 inches across, and so that's a good size for this one. So that's the first tip. You're going to want to pick the right size pot for your daylily. Alright, so the second thing you're going to want to do to be successful growing daylilies in pots is make sure they get plenty of water. Now this is true not just for daylilies in pots, but for anything that you have potted. Pots dry out much faster than the ground does. And so, in our area, East Tennessee, in the summer with all the heat, we really need to water every day. And so that's one thing you really just have to remember, because they will dry out so much quicker in the pot than they will in the ground. I just got done telling you that primarily you're going to want to put your daylilies in a bigger pot. And I'm going to show you kind of an exception to that rule. These are some daylilies that we've potted up to sell here at the display garden. This is Webster's Pink Wonder, and you'll see it's in, I think this is a 2-gallon pot, so it's about 8 to 10 inches in diameter. This is okay for a while. This is the second year that these have been in this, but they're not going to last much longer in this. They're going to fill up the pot, get root bound, and going to need to be moved to a bigger pot. So if you gotta need to hold something for a while in a smaller pot like this, that'll be fine, but eventually it'll need to go in a bigger pot. So the last tip is for you folks who live in areas that have cold winters, and that is that you will need to give your potted daylilies some protection over the winter. Now this applies not just to daylilies in pots, but to really anything in pots, because plants in pots are more susceptible to freezing over the winter because the air can go all the way around the pot. So what we do here at the nursery to protect our potted daylilies is we have them in a cold frame. So I'll put plastic over the top of this here come winter. If you don't happen to have a cold frame to put your potted daylilies in, some other things that you could do to give them some protection is you can just snug them up against the foundation where they'll be out of the worst of the winter wind and chill. Or you may want to go ahead and take your potted daylilies in somewhere like a garage or a protected shed or something. They don't need a ton of protection, but certainly if you leave them outside, you run the risk of them freezing over the winter. So hopefully those 3 tips will help you be successful growing daylilies in pots. If you have any other questions about growing daylilies in pots, or really anything about daylilies, put it in the comments below, or give us a call or visit our website.